We seem to be in the era in which games with arduously long development cycles are finally coming out. Final Fantasy XV was released after a long 10-year wait, and now we have Nioh, the development for which originally began back in 2004 when Koei Tecmo was simply Koei. I'm sure Nioh has changed a lot since it was first conceived, but during my time with the game, none of its development troubles made themselves apparent at all. The game is absolutely brilliant. Nioh, developed by Team Ninja, can primarily be described as a Dark Souls-like action RPG taking place in desolate Sengoku period Japan. While this description is certainly accurate, it doesn't really do Nioh the justice it deserves. It's a simplification that takes away from the beautiful minutiae found within the world of Nioh. Nioh is unique yet familiar because its design focuses not on being brutally difficult as you might expect from a game consistently compared to the From Software's Souls series, but instead is obsessed with everything the player interacts with at levels of detail akin to traditional JRPGs. While the two franchises share many similarities in difficulty, combat style, and aesthetic, the level of depth Nioh presents in its mechanics versus the brute force trial and error gameplay that the Souls series abuses make the two feel like opposites. In Nioh, you play as a blonde foreigner named William, a man on a quest to find the enemy who has taken and trapped the goddess that once protected him. This goddess can guide William's enemy to large sources of Amrita, a substance used in war to increase the strength of an army's fighters. It is a very sought-after commodity in the universe of Nioh, further showcased by the fact that William uses it as XP. You collect both Amrita and gold, along with the usual items available in varying rarities by killing enemies throughout various missions. Weapons can also level up by gaining familiarity as you use them, with each weapon having a different cap. Enemies can also drop materials that you can bring to a blacksmith to use in crafting and upgrading. There are two types of enemies that you will find in various missions in Nioh, humans and yokai. Humans come in many different sizes and have various different weapons or attack patterns, including dodging and guarding, whereas yokai are spiritual beings that are born through the anger and hardship being felt by the people of Japan in this era and lack the finesse of humans. There are various different types of yokai, most are oni, and they have a few different weapons or attack patterns that mostly involve brute forcing you down. Generally, I found yokai to be a bit tougher. Yokai are not only evil, however, as many, if not all, fighters in the Nioh universe are accompanied by yokai that bless them with power. William begins the game by choosing one of 3 yokai, each of which give him different stat bonuses, and acquires new yokai as the game progresses. William can fight in one of 3 stances, high, mid, or low, with his attack, speed, and the amount of chi used and its rate of replenishment, all influenced by the stance he is in. William can dash or use his weapon to guard, both of which use up chi. If William runs out of chi, he is immobilized until he regenerates at least a little less than half, allowing him to move freely once again. Enemies also use chi, which makes the dynamic of fights, especially against human NPCs, very interesting as they end up feeling like duels of guarding and conserving chi. As you hack and slash your way through missions, a bar will fill up, allowing you to use living weapon form, in which your health is replaced with a single timer and your stats are increased based on which yokai is accompanying William. William is able to level up, regain health, and save by visiting shrines scattered throughout the mission, and visiting one, however, will reset the enemies of the mission, forcing you to balance the risks of exploration against safety when first visiting mission areas. When you die on any given level, you are transported back to the shrine you last visited, your yokai having stayed behind at your grave to guard the Amrita you lost until you can revisit the grave and reclaim the experience. However, if you die on the way back, you lose the Amrita for good and your yokai returns to you when you wake at the shrine. You can also call back yokai in case you do not want to go back to your grave and are willing to sacrifice the Amrita you lost. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Nioh, and I don't want to explain too many of the game mechanics because a lot of the mystique of Nioh comes from the constant cycle of learning. I've played Nioh for over 35 hours now, and I'm still learning things about the different game mechanics or enemies I'm facing. It's all part of the addictive experience. As much as I enjoy Nioh, however, there are a few tiny flaws. Mission areas can vary wildly in size, but most are very small. They all feel as though they've ripped off design ideas from the Souls games because of the winding structures that all lead to the same place, all of which still falls short when compared to the sprawling areas found in Bloodborne. This can be fairly infuriating when playing Nioh, because as anyone who has played a Souls game before will know, these games generally call for a lot of grinding. When there are only a few areas that the player can revisit, this becomes monotonous fairly quickly. The constant challenge, however, of wanting to find the next area or beat the boss did keep me driven enough to trudge through though, and I'm sure it will keep your attention too. Graphically, Nioh isn't the prettiest game I've seen. It isn't even close. It looks great, don't get me wrong, but it isn't a pinnacle for graphical fidelity, and I can safely say that it probably didn't want to be anyway. But this attitude of settling is present in pretty much every aspect of the game aside from gameplay. Sound design is forgettable, the narrative is fine, and accoutrements like voice acting or world building are passable. Nioh excels in what it's good at, but it fails to present anything special. That being said, I loved my time with Nioh, and I absolutely think that any fan of hack and slash action RPGs should at least give it a shot. It's very deep, it's very well made, and it's fun to play despite its difficulty.